Well, just last hour, Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump said they are aiming to reach a trade and security deal within 30 days. This news comes after the leaders opened the day with a positive tone.
I think we're going to accomplish a lot, and I expect to. And I think our primary focus will be trade and trade with Canada, and I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah. President Trump is back on Canadian soil for the first time since the 2018 G7 summit in Charlevoix, Quebec. Then he signed the joint communique, but left Charlevoix and blew it up with a tweet from the air, blasting former Prime Minister Trudeau on social media. This year, leaders are not expected to issue a joint statement, and as Canadian officials are hoping to avoid a repeat of the last time. Now, right behind Trump in that famous scene, that photograph, is Everett Eisenstadt. He was Donald Trump's Sherpa at that 2018 summit. He is now a partner at the law firm Squire Patton Boggs, and he joins me now from Washington. Mr. Eisenstadt, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here today, sir.
It's a pleasure, David. Thank you for having me.
So some positive signs in the Canada-U.S. relationship at a G7 in Canada, which is a change from Charlevoix. We heard the president say this morning, I'm sure we can work something out on trade with Canada. And now we see they hope to have an agreement within 30 days, according to the readout from the Prime Minister's office. What's your assessment of how the day has gone there?
No, I think it could not have gone better from the Canadian perspective. And it's good for the United States as well. I mean, it started on a positive tone. I think there's a recognition that there's not going to be complete alignment on all the issues, but the fact that trade is on the agenda, that it's a top topic, that it's a topic that they both agree need to be resolved, and that there's a timeline to do so, I think that's a very positive and good beginning.
We saw a very different dynamic in the conversation, right? They had private meetings that went about an hour, first name basis when they came out of it, a Canada-U.S. pin on the president's lapel that he apparently, or his team, brought. It wasn't a gift from Canada as the host country. All of these things suggest that this is moving in a direction that maybe can hit that 30-day timeline, because you wouldn't put that in writing if you didn't think it was real, I'm guessing.
No, but I mean, it's just the way the president operates. I mean, he's always willing to sit down and negotiate. And this kind of interpersonal dynamic is perfect for resolving these tough problems. He is an individual who really thrives in an environment of a personal negotiation. And one of the things that, we reflect back on the G7 in Charlevoix, and what's forgotten about that meeting because of the aftermath is that generally the meeting went pretty well. There was a communique, there was an agreement. At the end of it, there wasn't, but that was not because of what happened at the time the president was on the ground. It happened because of what happened when he went in the air. So it's a good sign that what's happening today is it appears to be in a good direction, and that's very welcome.
Yeah, I remember, because there was a communique, and then President Trump left to go to Asia for his meeting with the North Korean leader. The Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau, gave a press conference and was critical of the United States on things, but it was things he had said before. But for whatever reason, the president didn't like it this time, and he just sort of rescinded his signature of the communique, more or less, or his endorsement of the communique in the air.
Yes, I totally recall all of that. And it was, I do believe, kind of and I don't know what the president felt or what his reaction was, but I think he had felt like he had really worked hard to accommodate and come to an understanding in the communique. And then as soon as he left, there was some language, about that was critical of him when he had really worked hard to achieve an outcome and had made some concessions on issues that were important. So it was more atmospheric, and it really did set a bad tone, I think, for the relationship that has carried through even to this day, which again goes back to the point about how critical these interpersonal dynamics can be in working with President Trump.
Well, we've seen in the G7 the next year that President Macron hosted, where they didn't try to get a communique because they didn't want to set up sort of an oppositional scenario, between the other countries and the United States on some contentious issues. And we're kind of seeing this here. We've seen Mark Carney publicly flatter the president, on inspiring them all to invest in defense, for example. So they've learned the lessons, I think, of the first term, that sitting down with the president and telling him the multilateral system is a good thing and it works well for the United States, that's not going to work with him. They have to find other ways to deal with Donald Trump in these settings.
Absolutely. And it's also more of an understanding that you need to see the other person's perspective. You may not agree with it. And the reality is that the G7 was a very cohesive unit for quite a long time, where countries could come together, they could agree upon common language. Sometimes these communiques get a little bit out of control. They take on too much. They try to, uh, really reflect everybody's personal political priorities, and you can't do that. So I think sometimes the communiques can be a bit of an obstacle to developing good relations. And we have differences. We have differences. The president has differences on defense, and he has differences on trade. The fact that the leaders are coming in with a recognition of that and willing to understand that, and not just try to browbeat or create a dynamic that's going to create cohesion when there may not be clear cohesion, is a reflection of the development and the maturity of the relationship, which I believe is a good thing.
Well, what about the flip side of that, though, Mr. Eisenstadt? That if you can't have the difficult conversations and try to reach a consensus on the issues that divide you, it becomes difficult for the seven biggest democratic economies in the world to take collective action on some of these things, and work together to try to push difficult issues further ahead. I mean, climate is not going to be talked about here beyond wildfires and community safety. It's not going to be about emissions and a climate plan and these sorts of things. So some of these issues, they get pushed to the side at a forum like this now.
Yeah, I think, I understand that point, and I do believe that there are issues for leaders to resolve. I'm not sure the G7's the place to do all that. Sometimes it can take on too much. The reality is there's a lot of important issues on the table right now. For the president, trade is a priority, and he's working hard with these leaders to find a pathway for agreements. And I expect progress to be made. The fact that there's an announcement about a 30-day timeline is part of that progress. We saw earlier there's been some implementation of the U.S.-UK trade agreement that I think is very telling and very positive as well. So perhaps we could have some more dynamics like that. We'll have to wait and see what transpires over the next several days, but it certainly looks like we're off to an interesting and hopefully productive G7 meeting.
Hmm. Yeah, I just wonder, as a final point, what's your thoughts on how you view how Mark Carney has managed this relationship with Donald Trump? Because things have been very difficult, obviously, as you can imagine, for the past little while. But they got through the election. They've had some phone calls. The Oval Office meeting happened, and the tone and things have changed. They talk and text, and it was very friendly today. I mean, so far it seems to have worked, but steel and aluminum tariffs have doubled. They've not gone down in that time frame. So how would you assess how it's being managed?
Well, you can't solve everything overnight. It's a very pragmatic approach that seems to be bearing fruit. And look, the president's going to be in office for 4 years. He's been in office now for 6 months. We have some of the new dynamics that could be, how people react to them helps set the tone of the relationship. So I think that the way that it's been approached is a very pragmatic, problem-solving approach. It's an approach that I think will resonate with the president. And to be candid, we need to find a way to resolve these issues because we are very important trading partners. We may not go back to the type of trading relationship we had, say, 20 years ago, but I do think we'll be able to productively work through these issues and find a good path forward.
Do you think, just as a final point, Everett Eisenstadt, do you think Americans are feeling the pain of this now, too? Because we spoke with the Premier of New Brunswick, who was part of a delegation in Boston meeting with the Northeastern governors. Some of their tourism communities and other sectors are getting walloped by the Canadian boycotts here. I mean, what's your sense of the domestic pain and pressure here to get a settlement on the U.S. side?
There's always going to be, David, it's a really good question. And it's when you've had economies that have developed over a period of time, say 20 years, you accommodate to that reality, right? And so this disruption is painful. And the president even acknowledged that several months ago that some of his policies will cause disruption. And not everyone's going to benefit equally. But at the same time, these are important issues to him, and I think he's willing to, take these on to try to get what he believes will be a fair trading relationship. Now, I'd hope that sentiment about visiting the United States is short-lived. We obviously would love to have more visitors from Canada here, and I've been to Canada, and it's love to visit there as well. So hopefully, we'll work through this, and the pain points will be short-lived, and we'll find a very, very good and productive path forward.
Everett Eisenstadt, it was good to meet you, sir, in Washington. Thank you for joining us today.
David, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.